violets in bloom. Animals strike curious poses. They feel the heat between me and you. Just leave me standing, alone in a world that's so cold. Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe I'm just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other? This is what it sounds like when the doves cry.
What's going on again?
You're not even singing the song. Like, what song are you
He
singing?
excited.
Hey,
What's
what
going
you
on?
doing out?
Welcome to the jungle.
Welcome to the jungle,
Sipping on
baby.
some,
What's happening? Coffee for Your Souls back, episode 12. I'm here with my boys, Abby. Tet is in the house. Black Max will be out for the night, but we're going to be here to hold it down. If you want to come into the cipher tonight, feel free to ping us in. I'll set the link out if you guys want to come join the conversation. But we have a very interesting topic tonight.
sure.
Episode 12 was have gender roles shifted in the last couple of years or in the time. And I'm gonna pass it off to Cole, but kind of kick it off. But overall, we're here to talk about it. Feel free to come join the conversation. It's gonna be a very interesting topic. After doing some definitely detailed research on this, it's a very interesting topic and one of the hottest topics out there right now. So, Cole, take it away, baby.
You got me over here. You just throw me into the water. That's all right. I know how to swim. Hey, so just looking at gender roles and bringing this up, it's funny when you look at some of the shifts in society right now. It's really, you begin to question things or begin to ask questions about things that traditionally we didn't ask questions about. There's a couple of things with gender roles. So first and foremost is like you got the traditional gender role, and where did that even come from, right? Mm-hmm. So if we look at our culture, European culture established the gender roles that we currently conform to. I don't know about African culture. Actually, I do know about African culture, and those roles change. They shift per the village, per the tribe. So it's not always a patriarchal. Some are patriarchal, some are matriarchal. And so it fluctuates. It's not just a constant that this is what the men do and this is what the women do. It's all about community. But when you look at traditionally, let's say the United States, initially when we came over here, we're like, look, hunters and gatherers. Some people were the gatherers and some people were the hunters. And typically those things had an impact on gender roles. So, hey, we're the stronger physiological sex. So that means we go out and hunt the buffalo and kill whatever we need to kill and hunt and then come back and feed it to the family who's been gathering and picking the berries and the fruits and everything for us to eat. But we ain't hunting no more. We go to a grocery store for food. So then the question begins, are we still conforming to those same roles? And has it shifted a little bit based on the things and the duties and what we are required? And has the definitions of masculinity and femininity changed? And what are we seeing in terms of shifts? We see a lot more things that we've never seen as kids. We never saw the transgender conversation, you know what I mean? LGBTQ, IA rights have something that is been, that was actually around when we were kids, but it's more in the news and in the know now. So looking at those various things and looking at how people identify or self-identify themselves and want you and I to respect them, et cetera, and how those shifts impact how we communicate with one another and how we deal with one another. So, hey, have the gender role switch. So it's a hot topic. I just wanted to talk about it. Even if you think about, I think the hot topic while we were growing up is are you metro? You remember that? Metrosexual. You were like, what's that? Oh, that's the pretty boy that slicked his hair back and always gets his hands manicured. As if to say that it is not okay for a man to do said thing. But when men did do those things, they were like, oh, that's a little feminine. I don't know about that. And even establishing those things, if you dig even deeper, just think how we associate colors and various things that people are doing to masculine or feminine. We ingrain those things in our kids as they are kids, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's one thing or the other. Why is blue like a boy and why is pink like a girl? They're just colors. They're just things we associated. And we program kids that way. Right? Don't play with that dog because that will make you like a girl. Or don't put those shoes on. Or don't do those things. And so
don't cry.
Don't cry. Don't express yourself. You know what I mean? Don't say how you feel. You know what I mean? Man up. Get over it. A lot of those things don't allow men to process. And understand their emotions, deal with them properly, and that changes and that comes out in outbursts of various different things as we get older, because we've never processed them, and then they're like, oh, I need to see a therapist, man. I don't even know how to deal with these things that are causing me to be bogged down, etc. So there's a lot of factors in gender roles and how they affect us. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll pass it back over to you.
I think that it's a very interesting topic, right? Because to your point, you mentioned emotions, you mentioned the colors, you mentioned the experiences that we see, and there's things that we've been brought up with that we're not. It's not upfront. Like if you think about the BET show the other night, you saw your boy Lil Nas X. He kind of got up there and did that little song, and at the end he ended up kissing one of the dancers like on the stage and stuff like that. It's like a big hoo whatever, right? And love is love. I don't care. Do what you want to do. I'm not knocking anybody's hustle. Hey, it is what it is. I said the one thing I can sit there and say about our cipher and the importance of our cipher and the strength that we have is that we are able to communicate how we feel. We've always done it. It's never been something like hard for us. Like if I have an issue with Av, me and Av have a conversation. If I have an issue with Cole, many a times me and have a conversation. It's never to that point like, hey man, we step on the wrong foot. We learn from it, and I think I consider it a blessing that we have the ability to be strong enough to be a man to have a conversation, and we're not scared to share our feelings, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people appreciate from us, because we speak the truth, and we sat, laughed, cried, drank, everything over the years. We've known each other for 20 plus years. We know a lot more about each other than a lot of people. A lot of people don't, and people still to this day ask us the question, are we still friends? Well, yeah, because we're real brothers, right? Family, not even brothers, and we're family. And I think this topic itself is like, you think about it, it's like the gender role has shifted, right? If you sit there and think about it, women have become breadwinners in the household. That was unheard of in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Where the woman is the breadwinner. Now they're out there making more money, where it's the level of questions like, are you okay with your wife or your girlfriend making more money than you? Absolutely. Because you're a team, right? So what I'm saying, for me, I step back and I look about it like there's growth. You guys know about my family. I have nothing but strong women in my family, so it's nothing to me. Same thing for you, Cobra. Same thing for you, Av. Like, it's something that it's growth. If you got the smarts and you do it, represent. I'm not gonna be in your way. What kind of man would I be if I'm in your way for you, or be jealous of you if you doing something that you really have a dream to do? You know what I'm saying? So, Av, I thoughts to you, brother.
No, I agree with what you're saying, but I see it as when we speak about gender roles, right? A role is a position you play. With that being the definition, the position you play, then that's flexible. I mean, that can change with culture, that can change with religion, that can change with age, that could change with so many different things as far as the role you play. That could play with status, financial status, educational status, inheritance status. All this stuff can change and makes the role, when we say gender role, the role can change. You can switch the roles. However, gender, I think, is something where that's when we start getting into nature and biology, and I think that's where the discussion becomes a little more intricate. Again, it's somebody's opinion whether a woman should cook.
Right.
It's someone's opinion whether a man should go and cut the grass. That's all cultural. That's all developed through movies and history and quite frankly, men being the more powerful gender over the years. And like, again, that comes from what Kobler was saying, being that we're more physically stronger generally. As a rule, we're physically stronger. So of course, that would mean that we're going to dominate our way into the top naturally. But now that we're in a world where education and brains outplays brawn, then this is what we're starting to see the switch as far as roles go. But I don't think that gender, in a sense where we're talking about feminine and masculine, we're talking about estrogen and testosterone. I think that's where we start getting to the question of where we're at now, as far as people saying, gender neutral, and I'm gender neutral, and we don't want to use pronouns now. I think that's when things start getting a little crazy. And I guess that's where the discussion is going to be. Is society going against nature? And this is where I think the question is for me: is it going against nature?
Well, yeah, no, just to piggyback. So there's some statistics to throw in there. So it said, reading something that says the women's labor force participation was rising from 32% in 1950 to 57% in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Men in the labor force is falling from 82% to 69% over the same period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. I think what you pointed out to me, those are two different conversations. So one is like the roles. You make a great point. It's just that it's a role, right? So if now my wife is a breadwinner and now I'm staying home, you have more men who stay home and take care of their kids. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. But that is something that's being done. That's just a shift. So to your point, that's just a role shift. That doesn't happen all the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it does happen more often, probably more now than we saw when we were children. I don't know how often I saw that as a kid. And I don't know, you guys can give feedback, et cetera. And then to your point, I think another thing you point out is, okay, so if we look at who's in college, we're not in college. Women are in college. Women are graduating with degrees at a higher clip, I think to the tune of 60%. So there's way more women in the education fields and getting a higher education than men. For African American women were the number one starters of new business in the United States for, I think, the past couple of years. So then that aspect of things, how's that shifted? And so you have some of those plays where the dynamics of what people are trying to do and accomplish change. And unfortunately, when you start to sprinkle an ego and people feel a certain way, then it's now your requirements, your expectations of the other sex, those can potentially change too. And so that conversation is another aspect of it. It's like, well, I'm doing all this, so what are you doing? You know what I mean? As opposed to, speaking of what John was talking about, this is a team. I could care less if my wife makes $2.7 million and I make $30,000, right? But if you look at some of like various podcasts and et cetera, you see a lot of women say, as a lot of them say, they're like, I'm not dating down, right? So if I'm going to date, you need to make more than me, or you need to be of this echelon in order for me to make that. And that's also a very small percentage of individuals. That's not a large amount of people. So you begin to look down on other aspects of the community. And I don't think that's fruitful or helpful in the whole overall sense. And I do think that, for us, like that's why I mentioned the European and the African concept of family and community, as I typically always say, drives a lot of those things. A lot of the expectations that we have. Hey, money don't mean much when you got every aspect of the community helping you to raise your children, or every aspect of the community ensuring that you're successful. It doesn't mean as much. And that chase for money is also not a concept that's nature or natural to what we drive and try to do. Money is a tool. You know what I mean? It's not the end all be all. So I think that plays in the conversation as well. So I'll just piggybacking off what you were saying, Dimitri.
What do you think about? I mean, what is feminine? What is feminine? What would you define feminine as? Give me some.
That's a slippery slope. Go ahead.
No, it's not, because this is the slippery slope is when we can't define words that are simply supposed to have definitions. That's when this is where I believe we're going as.
Well, what was the definition based on? You know what I mean?
The definition is based on.
Because all it really says, it says the definition says having the qualities or an appearance traditionally associated with women. That's the definition. Or denoting a gender of nouns and adjectives conventionally regarded as female sex or gender. So that's the actual definition of it. So if you were saying feminine, what qualities traditionally? So I would go more so towards the things that you spoke of earlier, like the aspect of nurturing. You know what I mean? typically women are more of a nurturer than men are, just because of their connectivity to our children, right?
Right.
So because they raise a child, they're with the child, especially in the early years. There's a connection that gains or that is gained there, and that's reading body language and knowing what the kid likes and knowing what's
Absolutely.
going on.
This is ingrained in DNA of a female.
Well, it's not so. Just if you look, there's a special called Humans on Netflix. So it says typically when you connect with the kid earlier, there's a physiological response in your brain, and there's increased connectivity. But if you were to remove the mother and put the father in the same time period, the receptors in his brain increased the same way that the woman did. No different there, right?
Right.
But in terms of naturally, what it seems like is women are nurturers, meant to, raise a family, ensure that people are taken care of. And to someone could argue that is why the emotionality is there, because that is what's needed as a part of the structure to ensure that the whole is successful. If you want to say appearance of a woman, of course you could do the physical traits. Men don't have breasts. Technically we do. We don't. If you look at the structure of a woman, more often than not, it's different than a man. The leg structure, how we walk, the gait, everything.
100%. 100%.
Those things are different. You know what I mean? The fact that typically my hair is not going to grow down to my, and of course as a European construct, but my hair is not going to grow here, and I'm not going to put Bantu knots in my hair. You know what I mean? But a woman traditionally would, depending on the village, tribe, etc. So I think that's kind of fluid, depending on where the person's coming from. So based on, I was just giving some.
But the angle that you're talking about, like gender fluidity, right? So when you start thinking about the equality, to Dimitri's point, like what is the definition of feminine, right? And I'm looking online, and it's, and I think you said this: having qualities of appearance traditionally associated with women, or of denoting of gender of nouns, adjectives conventionally regarded as female, and the female sex or gender, right? So when you sit there and think about all those things, right? Like the I guess from a perspective,
but that doesn't.
But from society's perspective, right? They feel a woman is soft, or she's the emotional one. But who says that's the case, right? That has totally changed what we're talking about, right?
Wait, hold on though, John. This is okay. So when we just by the definition both of you guys read as feminine. Mm-hmm. You can, and this again, this is from the definition and cultural norms of United. Stick with United States because it goes. So in the United States, if you think about feminine, you think gentle, right? Mm-hmm. You think soft. You think unaggressive. Mm-hmm. You think intuitive,
subservient.
Yes. So here's a
hold on. Let me just say a couple things. So emotional, okay, nurturing, sensitive. Again, I said intuitive, and these are some of the things that we can say that the feminine, as far as what they said, the roles and the different things that a feminine woman would exude. Now, all of what I just said, if we were to take a male and a masculine of masculine alpha males, and we were to start injecting that alpha male with estrogen therapy, he would naturally start to gravitate towards those things I just said. He would naturally estrogen makes you less aggressive. But that's a fact. Estrogen makes you less aggressive. Testosterone makes you more aggressive. Estrogen makes you, wait, let me just say a couple things. Estrogen makes you softer. Testosterone makes you harder, bone development and muscle development. So it's more than just a role play. This is biological hormones that actually direct.
Right. I agree. I'm not disputing what I'm saying. Is you got to be careful about associating estrogen with emotion. I agree with you. So you went into emotion and physiological changes. That's legit. Like if I get estrogen in my system, it's going to change some dynamics of how my body physiologically moves. Right? It's going to adjust some things. That doesn't necessarily mean, and to your point, I got you in terms of the aggressiveness, because those are, what's the name? not neurotoxins, but those are stimuli that get, you know what I mean, in my body, or right, there's chemicals that shift and change. But that's not necessarily saying that now I'm going, so here's stereotypically feminine are some of the things that this is stereotypically nurturing, sensitivity, sweetness, supportive, gentleness, warm, passivity, cooperativeness, expressiveness, modesty, humility, empathy, affection, tenderness, being emotional, kind, helpful, devoted, and understanding. That's one thing mentioned, stereotypically feminine. So I think the thing that where the lines get crossed is, I agree with you. If you were to have estrogen, that's going to shift some of the way you move physiologically. But there are individual men who express
emotionally too, though. Let's be clear. It's not just physiologically. It's mentally too.
But
this is why someone who takes steroids is known to be aggressive, is known to be have a quick temper. It doesn't just affect you physiologically.
It depends on the body.
Of course, but we're talking in general.
Because people take steroids and testosterone. So typically, men take testosterone when they get, like, let's say when you get a certain age, and your body's not producing testosterone. Hell, we got T clinics everywhere. I know you know that in Florida. I'm sure it's in South Florida, right? They're taking those things so their body can build muscle, et cetera, et cetera. I can say from my observation, I haven't seen that someone who's taking testosterone is more aggressive. I haven't, but that's not to say that that's not the cue. That's not the case. So I'm not saying that there, but I am saying you got to be careful because emotions are subjective, right? So I can look at that person and be like, oh, he's being soft, or I compare those things, and I think that's when you start to skew those lines because you're like, oh, they're acting soft, or a woman is soft. Hell,
there has to be a way.
There does have to be a way, but the same way saying that a woman is soft is totally not true because hell, ain't none of us carrying no kid for 9 months and pushing it through our womb.
We're not talking about that. See, again, this is where we're getting. If we start saying women are soft and men are hard, we're getting it wrong. We're not. This is not what we're saying. There's plenty of women out there that are more swollen than us. They powerlift.
I agree with you. I'm saying that's why you have to be very specific in a way. You can't. If you start crossing those two lines, then
the thing is,
it's tough.
A specific fact is testosterone and estrogen are two opposite hormones in the human body, and they have specific functions that can't be debated. They can't be debated. This is what they do when they're in the human body. Now, it may do to you if you take a testosterone shot and I take the same amount of cc's of the same shot, it might affect your body different than it affects mine. But overall, we know that testosterone is going to increase muscle mass, is going to increase mental clarity, like certain things that it does.
Right. So here I have,
and estrogen does too.
I have the effects.
But real quick, I'm just gonna say one thing. The point of me saying all of this is those are naturally occurring hormones that nature created. Right. So when we talk about roles, there's stuff that society has designated as feminine, and there's stuff as nature has designated as feminine. And if we stick to the fact that things that nature has made feminine and nature has made masculine, and things that society has made masculine and society has made feminine, those are two different things, because one can be altered and changed over time depending on society and what's going on, and the other one will never be changed unless it's altered through a means that's unnatural. So that's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying?
So to give specificity to what you were saying, here are the effects of testosterone. So of course it says I'm being a little like a tutor over here. So it starts in the hypothalamus. That's what determines how much testosterone put in the body. The hypothalamus passes instructions supposedly to the testicles. And then your kidneys also pump out testosterone, produced mainly in the testicles. So clearly women don't have testicles. So the likelihood of them testosterone has no impact. Sperm, it impacts sperm production as well as genital transformation, as you know what I mean? It affects libido. So it affects our sexual desire. Behavioral traits wise, it affects our, as it puts, competitive spirit is influenced, can be, or may be influenced by the amount of testosterone. And then beard and body hair come from testosterone. So as you're losing body hair, there could be a possibility that you're losing testosterone. Some of the side effects of testosterone replacement therapy includes skin irritation and acne, i.e., steroids. You know what I mean? When people are
Right.
right, muscle mass. So it helps increase muscle mass, increases fat metabolism, increases bone density, may play a role in heart health. But studies of testosterone therapy and heart health are ongoing, and blood tests can tell if your testosterone levels are in normal.
Now, a lot of the stuff that you mentioned there, I can easily look at that and say, okay, well, over time and thousands of years of evolution, millions of years of evolution, if you ask some, that the reason why males play a dominant role in society as far as the breadwinner again is because testosterone would allow them to be able to go out and be aggressive and hunt longer, stronger, and more effectively. So that you can see how those roles have played. But as long as we're looking at the gender roles, as I believe that's something that an individual chooses when they're with the opposite gender, or I guess with the same gender these days. They can decide which role or traditional role that they're going to play. You know what I'm saying? And I think it makes sense to find a partner that's going to complement the role that you're good at, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? A female that complements a male and a male that complements a female, depending on what they want to do. That's what's going to keep, a society working healthy, not necessarily whether women are staying home or not.
Supposed to do said thing. I think that's where and once again, piggybacking off of what you're saying more often than not is saying that somebody's supposed to do something or supposed to.
Right. That's where it gets.
That's where you starting to drip a little bit. You're supposed to cook my food. Now I know how to cook. I would appreciate it if a woman does cook. I know how to cook. I'm good. You know what I mean? Similar. Go back into your point, Dimitri. If I kill a deer, I gotta cook the deer. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I'm out in the field and this is where we're eating tonight. You know what I mean? We're not going back to the village, but we take something to go back so we can feed everybody else also. You know what I mean?
But you also.
And while I'm gone, she's taking care of the kids because I'm going out to accomplish a task. I think to your point, Dimitri, these are things that complement one another. When you start to skew that complement and you start to designate that one,
yes, sir, you get chaos.
Then that goes back to your point about nature. In nature, everything works together. One piece links to the rest, links to another, and it comes back full circle. The moment we get into shifts and shit like that begin to break that shift, you're 100% correct, and I agree with you. That's when stuff starts getting off. You're like, what's going on? You're like, oh, well, they claim this. Okay, so what's that got to do with us? Well, then that's when it goes to the point where you see women taking different roles. Men may not know how to deal with it because traditionally they haven't, let's say emotionally. So now these things become outbursts because they've never, addressed those things in various forms of society. So now there's a rift. And the rift causes, conversations to be like, well, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and I can't believe it. And now the woman's like, you ain't doing nothing. And there's a rift. There's a breakdown in the cycle somewhere.
For sure.
Yeah, because everything you said it earlier too, is that things are cultural, right? So over the years, of course, they're going to vary. They're going to vary over the years and cultural years and historical years and what's going to happen. And I think the reflection of what you mentioned a little bit earlier too is like what you're seeing on television. What are you teaching the kids or of that nature? Because everybody's different. Everything is influence, and I think it's a point of like making sure that from my perspective with my kiddos is like making sure that they have the ability to express themselves as they see fit. Right. Like, tell me how you feel. Tell me, I want to know, right? And I don't have a problem with you crying if you explain to me why you're crying, or not just crying just to cry, right? But you also have to explain. You have to understand that so much stuff is impacted by the things that they watch, and as you know, we talked about this before, from social media and all the things they got their hands on now. So that also is perspective. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's a lot being taught like that.
Even like you see the memes. A real man does this, and a real woman does that. I'm like, get out of here. Who are you to define what's a real man, a real woman? It's crazy. And people actually live by these stupid ass rules.
Yes.
And it's like female and male again, the roles vary as far as what you choose to do. No one can tell you what to do, but this is something that I look at and I see sometimes. Like the other day, I'm not going to get into who, where, when, or what. I just saw that a young boy, he was walking around with heels on, and somebody was like, "Go and take those heels off." That's going crazy, right? And I'm not crazy aggressive yelling at him, but you could feel he was basically chastising the young man for wearing heels.
Right.
Now, I look at it like, okay, that is where you look at something and you could say, okay, this is where society has made a decision that high heels are for women.
Are for women.
Are feminine. And yes, if someone you think it, you automatically go feminine, but that is a society construct that was put together. And that same, and I've got to be honest, it's the same thing with a dress, it's the same thing with all of those things. Nail polish, pedicure, all this stuff. Because
but Dimitri, look when we were younger, you remember all the bands that were androgynous, but they didn't question they didn't question their masculinity. Do you remember that? They weren't like, what's her name dressed up with Alice Cooper dressed like this, wearing those shoes? He's not masculine. That was never the conversation. It was just like, oh, he's a rock and roller, and that's what they do. You remember that?
Abstract.
Yeah, it's just abstract. He's just different. So to your point, I mean, it's just like how the society is open to it or not open to it, how they communicate about it. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, the older generation is always going to look at their cultural norms and compare it to the shift in the norms with the new generations coming. That's always going to happen, right? So to me, my whole thing is looking at it as it can make someone feel uncomfortable if you see somebody doing, saying, or acting in a particular manner that goes against your cultural norm. And because it messes with your piece. You know what I'm saying? You're looking at somebody and you're used to the norm being this way, and somebody comes around all of a sudden and just flips that over. People get upset. I mean, I think it's stupid. You know what I'm saying? I let people do whatever the hell they want to do. I don't care. As long as you're not hurting anyone, I can care less what you wear or what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? I really don't care. And I think more people they're being forced to understand that, because people are getting bolder and bolder as far as testing what society says is normal and what society says is not. And that's going to continually happen until people understand that people have the right to do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting another individual. You know, if you're going in a mall and you see a gay couple, a lesbian couple, trans, whatever couple, showing affection to themselves. And when I say that, I don't know, me personally, I don't feel like even male and female should be all up on each other in public anyway. That's just me. Again, that's me. I don't do it if you want to. You're not hurting me. But in my opinion, I think that, that type of affection, as far as, when it gets too sexual, you're kissing and tonguing someone down. I think that male or female, whatever the case may be, I think that's not in a public place is not a place for that. But some people get mad just because they see a gay couple interacting normally, sitting down, having coffee, or some people will just get upset by that, simple that, or get upset by seeing a male with nail polish off, or seeing a female, Well,
it's funny thing is, remember as a kid, we were just like, oh, that's goth. You remember that? You're like, oh, right. Like they got all.
Yeah, but people. I mean, it depends, though, man. Because homosexuals have it a lot easier than they did with every year passing. Let's just be honest, man. Homosexuals and transgender and all of the above, they've had a hard time.
When you say easier, what do you mean by easier?
I'm saying now society is a lot easier on that culture, because before it was like
still depends.
It's almost like saying society has a lot easier on African Americans versus slavery. Like there was a time when homosexuals would never come out the closet ever, because they would lose everything. I
still think that has to do with your skin color. I think the reason why homosexual rights are way and more prominent is because it's still white males. You know what I mean? Or it's still the one that's pronounced is still of the dominant quote unquote culture in the United States. Because transgender African Americans are getting killed, slain. That's not in the news like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Look at the way we self-hate in terms of us. You know what I mean? They were like, you never come out in terms of in the African American church if you're gay. If you look at like Caribbean culture, Jamaican culture, even African culture, man, they be in their songs. They talk about how they burn out the chichi. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So those aspects, I think a lot of that also plays into, for us, unfortunately, into the color of the skin of the people who are pushing those or promoting said thing as well.
Well, if you look at, if you go back and you look at somebody who you knew as a child who grew up to be a homosexual, if you were around that person enough, being they were a classmate, a friend, on the neighborhood or whatever, you could see that they had a hard time growing up. I mean, you could see that they got teased. You could see that they got bullied. It was a time when that was something that was just a lot more difficult to be than it is now. Now, it's accepted in the sense where I've seen functions where the kids come out and perfectly openly honestly gay, and they're perfectly fine, and their friends accept it, and they don't bother them. And almost another thing, as a masculine males, the straight males are less bothered by being around a homosexual male in a hanging out environment. That's something I know in our crew, we never stereotype. Anybody could hang with us. It didn't matter what your sexual preference was. That's something, but that's not everybody, man. That's not in everybody's circle. You know, some people will not be cool chilling, having a drink, you know, with a gay person, openly gay, flamboyant gay. Some people don't like that. But again, it's becoming a lot easier for people to be themselves. I think in all aspects of life, because again, those cultural norms are being contested and crushed.
No, you're
Same
right.
thing with the female vice president and the male and Obama being, you know, the first melanated whatever. So if you want to say the first melanated president, these things are changing.
I think like I said, I think the issue becomes when you think about gender roles, etc. Okay, so just give you an example of something I've heard. So typically, okay, so this is an argument. It says, okay, so they talk about this Fresh and Fit podcast that I was telling you about. So they're talking about roles, like masculine and feminine roles. And they said the issue now with women is they want traditional roles when it suits them, but then they want modern women roles when it suits them as well. So they flex. And you having that expectation on a man, it's not, you know what I mean? That's not level, because it's essentially saying, I want you to provide for me. I want you to make more money than me. I want you to do these things in this situation. But over in this situation, I'm the boss and I'm this and I'm that. So it's almost can be construed as convoluted, right? Same thing as you mentioned before with the traditional roles in terms of men. Like a man's like us saying a man's supposed to do this. Well, I know my grandfather was very misogynistic, right? Because my mother told me, right? And then you see the impact that also has on kids and et cetera, because the expectation is to move in a certain way because of the excuse me, because of these roles. Excuse me, hold on. So then the question is, where did he get that from? And they both have an impact. I think that goes back to excuse me, hold on. It goes back to how things fit and how do things complement one another. And I think that's the point. Like, naturally, some things are supposed to flow in a certain way, but I also think that you're not supposed to, if something's not flowing in the way that you want it to, so what? Be in your world, enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and move on.
Right.
You know what I mean? You being concerned about somebody else, typically more often than not, showcases a shadow side. Insecurity. And why? When we suppress things over and over and over again, what typically happens? Oh, they come out.
Yeah, aggressive.
Shadow, right? So if I'm like, gay people are this, gay people are that, and women's supposed to do this, And women's supposed to do that. Your shadow side, more often than not, in terms of psychology, is all about that thing, right? And you've never processed it. So the way that you push it away is you make all these comments, you say, I'm against these things. But then how many times have we seen, and this is just a few reference points, somebody like, I hate gay people, and then come to turn out that they're gay. Right?
Yeah, they're straight in a hotel with like
right. In a hotel,
and it'd be like a politician or a pastor, some
right. Yeah, like gay people are the devil, and you're like,
right,
like we have you on film soliciting somebody in the bathroom in American Airlines. So even that aspect of things be carried. But I say all that to say, like, if it's something that you don't do or that is not okay with you, that's fine. But enjoy your life. It has nothing to do with you, and keep it moving.
Yeah, man, live and let live, bro. I don't understand why people need to to worry about these things. And the people who put these things into biblical context, don't be hypocritical about it, right? So if you're gonna look at something and follow the scriptures literally, then you got to do it the whole way through. It can't do it like when you feel that you want to change,
pick and choose,
right? So again, I think it comes down to discern biological and physiological facts that males and females have that are different qualities. Again, doesn't mean that a male cannot have the feminine qualities or a female can't have the masculine qualities, but those qualities are created and molded by hormones, and that's just the truth. That's why if somebody wants to be a female, they'll take estrogen, and if somebody wants to change into a male, they'll take testosterone. That's just what it is.
And who are we to judge?
Who are we to judge? Who are we to judge? But when it comes to roles, this is where I say, like when Koblo, when you mention that people want to switch and choose, what I'm saying? You can't have it both ways. If you're gonna say that you want a male to pay them the traditional masculine,
it's going to be difficult. You can have both ways. It's just going to be difficult. I say you can have it both ways.
It's gonna be like water and oil. It's not gonna mix, bro. It's not gonna mix. The roles are supposed to balance each other. The opposites are supposed to balance each other, and depending on, it doesn't matter who plays the role, but it has to complement somebody. In almost any scenario, somebody's going to play the dominant role, and somebody's going to play the dominated role. I don't know if those terms sound so good, but you know what I'm saying. Leader, follower, such whatever you want to say. I think a lot of this stuff comes from the church when they say the man is the head of the household, and the woman has to be subservient to the male in the house. A lot of these things come from religious aspects of things too. You can see the different religious aspects depending if you're a Muslim, a Jew, Christian, etc. You can see the difference in the different sects also of those religions, how they treat their women and how the women treat their men. Asian, same thing with Asian culture. You can see the difference. And I see it like this: whatever you are, you need to find someone who compliments you, and that's it. And that'll be the smoothest sailing you can have, with a partner or a lover. So gender roles, again, they're just roles. They can change at any time. Gender, that's a different topic. That's a different thing. I don't think that can just be switched without some heavy intrusive therapies, surgeries, etc. And again, and we get into also, the homosexual thing too. Whether someone is born homosexual or somebody chooses to be homosexual, how do you guys feel about that topic? Because
so my stepfather put it a good way. He was like, "Why would I choose to do something where I'm highly likely to get oppressed, pushed off to the wayside, ostracized, etc., not accepted by majority of society. Why would I choose to do that? That's not survival of the fittest. That doesn't make any logical sense, so to speak. So choosing to take that abuse, because the abuse starts as soon as the kids get into school. You know what I mean? They're like, why are you acting like that? Little boys or little girls say whatever they say. And to walk through that for 18, 26, 36 years voluntarily, that goes against human nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, for the most part, then you have the goth people and they do it to get, but I guess that's two different things as far as that. But would you guys say that a male and a female being a homosexual, lesbian, etc., would you say as a child that those people show the traits of the role that they are, not physically are, but would they consider themselves as far as male and female?
I remember when I was a little kid. So I was in DC, and the neighbors' kids used to play in the backyard. And one of the little boys always used to wear one piece. And he would play in a one piece. And of course, when he got older, he was gay. But I was like, oh, I knew he was gay when he was a little kid. Right. He wanted to wear one piece. Like, you know what I mean? What kid said that? That's the thing that they want to emulate. I do also think that some of the roles and some of the functionalities and some of that aggressiveness that you mentioned sometimes get skewed a little bit because that can also be impacted by your environment. Yes. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Dimitri, if your dad, your brother, your uncle, and everybody including everybody in that circle, is like, you excuse my language, you're like, oh, you got to get ass, you got to get after it, you got to get these women, you got to do it, bro. I mean, that's what we're here for. And that is the nature that you take on, and then that's who you are from that point because that's been instilled with you. It's still within you. So, for instance, like my grandfather was like, don't chase women, they'll always be here. So then I'm not overly aggressive because I'm like, don't chase women, they'll always be here. So I think that also has an impact on, some of your behavior as well. The people in the environment that you grow up in, and the roles that they play, et cetera. So just a thought, man.
I think we'll be a better world overall if people just live and let people do whatever they want to do, as long as they don't interrupt or affect you or harm you or destroy your property.
But you figure
that should be the rule.
But what's the funny part about it is what you're saying is like, if it was live and let live, who it messes up? It messes up all these companies because they don't know how to market to you anymore. And then you're not getting their hand in the pocket of what money they can get from certain things, right? Like, oh, now we got to deal with the nuclear family or this version. Now the nuclear family could be a man and two kids, or a woman and kids, or rather than a man and a woman and kids and stuff like that. So it's so interesting, like how everybody has their hand in something to try for control from the cultural perspective as well as the marketing perspective, and the messaging that goes out to other people to buy more products and all that other stuff. It's very interesting.
That's interesting what you said as far as the male the nuclear family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the household where two males or two females are the parents, and with kids in the household. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting topic, and that's also a topic that gets a little bit more controversial because people say that can affect the upbringing. Some people take the position that can take the upbringing of the kid, and that can affect the overall psychological development of the kid. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if there's any proof to that. I got to look it up though. That it affects them negatively. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that I don't.
That's a hard one.
I've seen it in DC. I know my kids asked me, and you gotta. I'm not gonna lie to them. I'm just gonna this is what it is. But everything's situation is different, and to each his own, and whatever. From a certain point, if you have a child watching a situation, then more likely going to fall into that situation potentially. I don't know what the percentage what you see, Cobra, but it's very possible, right?
But this is the thing, right? So people would say that if you have two males in the house raising the kid, or people would say two females in the house raising a child, that the child's going to be confused, not have a daddy or not have a mommy. But I say, hey, the traditional family has divorces 50% of the time. And half the time there's one parent, one parent's fighting the other parent. This one hates this one doesn't like this one don't talk to your father, don't talk to your mother, this and that and the other. And it's not exactly the traditional way. It hasn't been successful as far as raising the perfect child. So I don't think that argument really stands no more.
That's a good point. So if this is 2011, 2012, I said we compare spouse-partner relationships and parent-child relationships, family relationships, parenting stress, and children's general health, emotional difficulties, coping behavior, and learning behavior in household of same sex, this one's female, versus different sex continuously coupled parents with biological offspring. The results were there were no differences. No differences were observed between household types on family relationships or any child outcomes. Same-sex parent households score higher on parenting stress than different-sex parent households, and no significant interaction between household type and family relationship or household type and parenting stress were found for any child outcomes. So the same-sex parents, they were less stressed, and the outcomes of the child did not change.
Yeah, I mean, the source, whatever source that is, I would think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. Again, we've been doing the traditional thing in the United States for a long time, and I don't know. I don't think that that's not perfect. You can't sit here and say that that that's the only way that works, because we've proven that that's not. That doesn't work a lot of the time. So. Now that goes with the question: is can a woman teach a young man to be a man, a boy to be a man? Is that possible? I don't know about that. Can a woman teach a man
that goes back
to be a man?
That goes back to what you said before. It's complement and balance. You know what I mean? You have one aspect of things, and something presents a different aspect, and those things together complement one another. It's not that one doesn't need the other. The one does need the other. And so if a piece of that puzzle is missing, you know what I mean, then it reflects on child outcome.
But that's what I'm saying, though. So if a household has a male and a male, or a female and a female, then the other aspect is not there.
Possibly. But if one could play the role, you know what I mean, possibly. But the two parent household typically is more nurturing. But I mean, that's a good question, though. It's a good question.
It is. It's a good test. As far as we're talking about roles of gender. As I think the most important role the genders play is parents, and so that's interesting, man. That's interesting to see. So
this how? Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I somebody, I could see where somebody could take that side and say, hey, man, that would not be healthy for a child, because. A female can't teach a male to be a man, and a man can't teach a female to be a female. That argument, I think, is not 100%, but I think it could be definitely argued successful. At least in a influencing way. I can see people looking at it like that.
So I can't tell. This is another one. The first one was 2012. This is 2015, and it says, clinical experience would suggest that motherlessness, while not studied as extensively as fatherlessness, causes even greater damage to a child, because the role of the mother is so crucial in establishing a child's ability to trust and feel safe in relationships. Fathers also bring an array of distinctive talents to the parenting enterprise. Fathers excel when it comes to providing discipline and play and challenging their children to embrace life's challenges. Fathers provide essential role models for boys. A father's presence in the home protects a child from fear and strengthens a child's ability to feel safe. Also, the role that a man traditionally plays with a woman. As women will typically say, if the dude doesn't make me feel safe, I'm not dating him, right? Or I'm I'm not, because he's not quote unquote alpha. So then it says the extensive research on the serious psychological, academic, and social problems in youth raised in fatherless families demonstrates the importance of the presence of the father in the home for healthy childhood development. Long story short, it's a team. It's a team. And when you take one piece of the team away, no matter how that plays out, then it can have an impact.
Yeah, but can the team member play another role? Can two females be in a loving relationship, have a child, and one of the females say, "Look, I'm not a man, but I can show
I can provide that aspect of things.
I can provide that aspect where I give them more courage and tell them to be, and that's again that comes back to our upbringing as far as what a man is and what a role is. Because when you say, how do you teach a man to be a man? What are we saying? What are we saying? We're teaching him to be what? The breadwinner? Are we teaching him to be aggressive? We're teaching him to be strong and macho. And what are we teaching him? And why not teach our females to be the same? It's kind of weird. I like this topic. This topic is very intriguing.
Because also saying that if you're not strong, what's the opposite? You're weak.
We're a woman, exactly.
Right. Which is whack. That's whack.
It is whack.
So to say that the opposite is the other end of the spectrum, get out of here. Mm-hmm. Get out of here.
And who wants to be that? I can see why a lot of women are saying, "Look, man, we're sick of being on the lower side of the totem pole because you guys are, because of cultural norms, and that's definitely shifting. Men have to get used to it. And I think if you're a real man, you should not feel, you can't be intimidated or jealous of your partner or your female partner. If she's doing things big and doing successful and she surpassed you financially or whatever the case may be, that shouldn't play any role on you as far as feeling a man.
Because it has no reflection on who you are. Your value is not associated with your output. That's just something you do. That's the thing.
Your value is associated with your output, though. Let's be real about that.
No. So be clear. Your value is associated with your output because of society. But who I am doesn't have shit to do with how much money I make. Let's be 100% clear.
No.
That's what I mean. So because the constructs of the society that we live in, it is typically associated as such. But if you really
value to who, I guess is the question.
Yeah, right. So when you
really value yourself, you're good.
When you really get to the core with it, you're like, a job is a job. It's just that. Money is money. It's a tool. It's just that. That doesn't define who I am. It's something I do. It's something I've attained. But that doesn't define who I am. When I start to ingrain ego into that thing and couple it with I made money, so I'm the shit. Now we've got some things, right? Some things to unpack. Okay. And then that can construe or misconstrue various other things in conversation that we have.
There is something to be said that about somebody who learns through experience, education, the means to financially take care of themselves in a stable way. There is something to be said about that. You can't just say it's just something, because if it was just anything, then everybody would have money to the point where they're comfortable. So there is a level to that.
Make sure we're saying two different things. Okay, you being able to accomplish something is great. There's nothing wrong with that. Associating who you are and the meaning of your life to this thing, no. Because what you can easily also do is, if you don't have this thing, you don't mean shit. That's not accurate. It's not accurate. So you got to be careful about, did this person attain something and did they get life experiences? That's dope. That's the journey. But associating that with who that person is, the meaning of what they bring, is different. So that's
dangerous too.
It's that great point. It's very dangerous.
That's why society has so many.
Exactly. It's very dangerous, and that is not our culture. Let's be clear, because that breeds individualism. And individualism, if we look at the United States, if we look at the earth, if we look at the globe and seeing how we're impacting things,
it's destructive.
It's destructive. It's 100% destructive.
Mm-hmm. The village point of view will always be better than the king by himself.
Right.
Or the queen by herself.
The king can't be who he is unless he gets a group of people to
follow him.
Yeah, to believe that he's the king, and to work in some capacity to ensure that this person remains the leader, right? So he's got to convince. He's got to get you to believe.
Or he
He's
just
got to
kills,
get you to do various things.
he kills people like I'm the king.
And if you really think about it, if I have ulterior motives and I want to ensure that I remain this way, I'm like, my kid will be the next king. So I keep it going. Right? The next kid don't got to earn it. It's a right. Get out of here, man. So we got to be very careful, even in determining
and create a culture that believes that.
Thank you. So even when we're breaking down these aspects of gender roles, the one thing I notice when I hear, some of these other podcasts, et cetera, when they mention it, the thing that pops in my head is, but that's this type of culture, or that's this type of culture. That's not all cultures. So when you conform to saying that a man should do this and a woman should do that, that's based off which cultures. To your point, you said it earlier. You got Muslim culture, you got these ones, you got this one, you got this one. But I can take you to villages in Africa where, once again, the mother is king, right? Mother is king. And that's how things work, and they work together. Because ultimately, it's for the good of the group. It's not for the good of that one person. You know what I mean? Something like to that king aspect of things. So when we're saying a man should do this and a woman should do this, that is most certainly the culture that we've been bred in. And so sometimes you even have to step back and think about, let's think about a bigger picture. Even that construct is within what we've learned as children, learned on what, like you said, what we see on TV. And you make a good point, because you guys said talking about media. Hell, when we was on TV, you remember when they never used to curse on TV when we was little. I remember the first time I heard them curse on a sitcom. They never used to show certain things in terms of people kissing. They show everything now. They never show same-sex anything. They show same-sex everything now. You know what I mean? So even that progression of how things are shown and the influences that they have can have an impact as well.
All right, fellas. Well, that's it. That's it for tonight. You want to leave our guests with anything tonight before you go?
Live and let live, man. That's live and let live, man. And choose the role you want to play. Choose a partner that complements that role, and do you. That's it. Don't worry about nobody else's house. Do you. Raise your kids the way you feel is the safest, healthiest way to do it for your household. Don't worry about what other people are doing with their kids, unless it's going to directly hurt your child. So I think, do you. Live and let live, man. That's my philosophy.
All right. Kobe, got anything to say?
I think everything should be moved in more loving energy as opposed to fear or hate. You know what I mean? Fear and hate, they cause, discrimination, they cause breakdowns, they cause separation. But yeah, you're like, hey, I love you regardless of what you do. And you do what you got to do. I'm gonna be over here doing my thing, but I still love you. Yeah, allow people to be, man, because most of the issues, as we mentioned before, have to do with things that have been suppressed in people's life, things that they've been culturally been raised in various aspects, and those things that they've associated with their identity. And when you attack those things, they believe that you're attacking them. Feel attacked. You're attacking them as a person, when that's not true at all. That is a value that you hold, and we're having a discussion about said value, but I'm not attacking you as a person. Exactly. When you connect those two things, then there could be issues. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm this, I'm that. So if you say something to get that, you're essentially saying this. And that a lot of that has to do with, do you have true meaning of who you are? Because if you've attached yourself to an ideal, do you know who you are? Because it's just that, an ideal. So anyway.
So with that, good night, everybody. Thank you for watching tonight, and coffee for your soul.
Coffee for your soul, baby.
Now let's take it home.